Hello, people. Today we're going to be talking about update order, redstone ticks, game ticks, OOE, how we could use that in cannoning and everything. And this is the first part in the How to Cannon series. I plan on doing quite a few of these, and we're going to work our way from nothing, which is basically this. This is basically nothing. I'm assuming you know pretty much nothing about cannoning or, in this case, redstone. But we're not going to go over, obviously, all the pieces of redstone. We're just going to be going over the components of redstone that pertain to cannoning. Uh, and we're going to work our way from this all the way up to building a fully functional cannon. Um, and at the end of the series, we will have completed a just a pretty normal, just 3 second efficient nuke. And then we'll go on as the episodes continue farther on past that to be adding things like pseudo nukes, seeing how those work, um, and like one revs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started at the very basic. So when you place down a repeater, this is a redstone tick. This in time, in human time, this takes zero point 0.1 seconds to go through. These are used all the time in cannoning and all the time in redstone as well. These are the most fundamental part of redstone besides the redstone dust, and there's not much to them. They could click to 4, and when they're at the 4, they take zero point 0.4 seconds to go. Excuse me, and that's pretty much all there is to a redstone tick. And next up, we have what are game ticks. So game ticks happen every 0.05 seconds, and there should be 20 of them per second. And that's what TPS or server TPS is actually based off of. So if you have 20 TPS, that means your game is running very flawlessly at 20 game ticks per second. But when your server starts to lag, it could go down to lower game ticks per second. So if your server is at 10 TPS, that means your server is running and updating things at 10 game ticks per second. So what are actually game ticks, right? So one game tick in human time, and they're not exactly the same in any regard, but is about the same as two redstone ticks. So if you take two redstone ticks and one game tick, both of these are going to take the same time to execute, if you will. And game ticks control everything, right? Um, it's how the game advances stuff. So when things push, when plants grow, when chickens lay their eggs, and everything like that. Not that chickens laying their eggs have anything to do with cannoning, but there's an example. Have everything to do with game ticks and not redstone ticks. And the reason they're important for cannoning is because sometimes we need to have things happen game ticks after each other, and redstone ticks just aren't fast enough or precise enough. So OOE is, now that we're moving on, OOE is basically, in the way that it pertains to cannoning, usually it's how things end up in your sand stack. And there's quite a bit more to it, but let's take a common thing, right? A nuke, okay? And let's take some gravel as well. Let's say you have your sand, and imagine this is on top of pistons, like a normal sand comp is. Um, which, by the way, is just how you stack sand on the wall to hybrid, right? If you shoot this at a wall, what do you think is going to be on the bottom of the sand stack? I don't know why I'm waiting for you to answer because this is a YouTube video, but depending if I shoot this at a wall, these two gravel will be at the bottom of the sand stack. And the reason these two gravel will be at the bottom of the sand stack because I'm assuming that they turn into an entity state at this right time. So if these two gravel fall first, if they fall into the sand comp before these sand, then those gravel will be at the bottom of the sand stack. And then the sand stack would look something like this. So whatever falls first or whatever uh, gets like put into an entity first will be the first at the wall. A good example of that is when we get into the later episodes and start talking about nukes and things like that. You want your nuke to go off after all your sand falls. And the reason you want that is because after all your sand falls and your nuke goes off, your nuke will be at the top. If you put your nuke on immediately before all your sand falls, it'll be just like that gravel situation we just saw, right? it'll be turning it into an entity first, so then your nuke will be at the bottom of the sand stack, and that's not where you want it. That's a little bit about order of entities. There's a bit more to it, quite a bit more to it, but as it pertains to the very basics and fundamentals of cannoning, that's all you really need to know. And now we get into something called update order. This doesn't come up as much, but um, it's also something that you should know about. So update order pertains that if you power all of these, for example, if you power all these redstone components on the same game tick, and remember we just talked about game ticks, if you power all of these redstone components on the same game tick, which ones are actually going to go first? So it turns out repeaters are first in line. If all of these were powered on the same game tick, repeaters would be first in line. Then would come comparators and redstone torches would be second in line, and then would come pistons would be third in line. And there's one caveat to this. There's a few caveats to this, but the one notable caveat is when you're unpowering something, all comparators get unpowered before torches get unpowered. So if you're unpowering stuff, it'll be redstone ticks get unpowered, all comparators get unpowered, torches get unpowered, pistons get unpowered. But when you're powering something, if you're powering all these things on the same game tick, then it's uh, redstone ticks, comparators, and torches, and then pistons. There's not too much more to the very fundamentals. Um, and I don't want to spend too much time on the fundamentals because they're not as important as you might think. You don't need to know all these basic and fundamental ideas in order to make a cannon. You just need to know kind of vaguely that they're there so that if you run into problems with your cannon, you know how to fix them. In the next episode, we're going to be getting into starting to build our final product. We're going to be starting to work on that 3-second cannon that I'm talking about, and we're going to create the power, and we're going to learn about infinite boosters and how powers work, because this is going to be a very modern tutorial. And you could click off the video now, by the way. I'm just kind of explaining how the rest of this um, series is going to go. I want this to be kind of the definitive place somebody would go in 2021 at least to learn cannoning, right? There's another good channel that has a similar like how-to cannon tutorials, and it's really good. His channel is called One Stack. If you want to also look at that, I would recommend that as well. That's a very good series that he did over there. But we're going to be going into just building a cannon from scratch and showing you how every single part works and how they go together so that at the end of this, you'll be able to walk away and build whatever. Be able to like this. Anybody watching